this is a concern for Facebook now. There is a certain Russian group. I'm not saying Russia itself because we know that dealings with they're on a good agenda, but there are certain groups correlating through the inner group between them and Zuckerberg and on Facebook itself that are taking those of celebrities and they're using their names and saying that they're old, like Elon. I'm not married now. I'll give you a free car, but you got to pay this. I'll give you a card, but you got to do this. I haven't gotten this myself, and I have been warned by other people that this is a said warning outwards. This reality check one-on-one cage match between Zuckerberg and Elon with this bullshit with the other crap. If I have to take on the other side, I'll take the other side with this. I mean, this is ridiculous. We do not take automated bots and start using humanity with those automated bots, saying that you're a certain public figure. For shame on you. If I were you, Zuckerberg, I would rightfully let Elon take over Facebook. Because I'm shaking my head. You should feel ashamed of yourself and an allowance to other beings to doing this.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 31. Blue, how are you?
I'm good today, Mike.
Awesome. Hey, what are we going to talk about episode 31?
Well, one of the things we would be discussing about is recent events that have been accumulated in Maui, an area in Hawaii itself. Self-accumulation on products and schemes of events that the Biden administration had correlated and sent out, saying that it was weather caused. But it was more than just weather cause. The enunciation of what this was a decimation upon impasse in certain correlated areas. The deconstruct because of a biopsis effect from the upper hemisphere onto the lower hemisphere. Hot weather would not cause an instantaneous combustion upon the whole area like that. Now, if you use a radon io effect for a correlated stream, that could be used as a weapon and manipulated that way, it can. On the heat indexer between this and what was caused and analyzed in Canada as well, they were maintained and distributed by the native Centaura draconian reptids. They were distributed to pretty much decimate a lot of certain actuated speeds upon the realm. It's not a natural cause.
Wow. I can't wait to talk about that because I've been thinking about this all week before you even brought it up as a topic today. So I think we're on the same page here. It's amazing. Hey, before we get started, though, I do want to thank everybody for watching. Thank you for listening. If we're not where you find your stuff, let us know. We'll get on that platform. And, oh, yeah, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and notifications so you're notified when we post new material. Blue, what are we going to talk about first today?
Well, we're going to hit right into that. Well, the coordination scenes of effect. Now, think of an actual kill switch system that was placed upon the plateau itself. Innocent bystanders, and there was a lot of innocent bystanders, were killed upon impasse through this actuator. This actuator was diagnosed in understream events through certain areas in underground China. And I'm not going to blame the country itself, but I'm going to pinpoint out that there are negative beings being correlated around those aerostreams, as well as many others. That the defensive lines of the military offices of the negative ones had conjunctured into an uptune between themselves and HARP's industry itself, and an uptune download speed to actuate these weaponized systems against mankind. With these weaponized systems set against mankind, they're able to create laser pinpointed areas and start diagnosing that downstream. Canada was a little different because they had ground crew there. And they had a bioelemental conjuncture that was held to correlate between that and the weather IOT effects itself, aeronautically. This on its own is a defensive line, what they are trying now to coordinate against the life forces of the planet. Don't be surprised if they try and hide it through the weather systems itself, and they'll ensnare mankind thinking it's one thing, it's another. It's obvious and it's right out there in front of your faces that this was not a natural cause. If there would have been a natural cause, it would have had to have been some type of volcanic explosion or something to have even caused anywhere near that. It was too quick, too fast, too many lies at once.
You know, it's odd we're talking about this because, again, I've been thinking about it all week here. And the one thing, and I'm going to drop it here in the post-production, I'm going to put it right here in our show. There was a quote that Biden had made a couple weeks ago, and he makes a lot of Freudian slips. He says what's really going on, but he says it amusingly, or he says it anecdotally, or he says it in a way that it's just something that just comes out of his mouth and he can't stop the words. When he had his big interview with the Weather Channel, because he can't interview with anybody of substance who's going to ask him real questions, he said he's already declared a national weather emergency, a national emergency. He's already signed that in executive order. Now, I don't remember seeing that. I don't remember that being disclosed. But then he goes on to say, we've already established a $382 billion project to control the weather. And I'm like, are you hearing what is coming out of his mouth? No follow-up question. No, where is this facility? No, tell me more about that. Nothing. They just dropped it and let it go. But it's these little things that you're not going to hear in the mainstream media that make all the sense in the world. So
here's some of what he had to say.
Mr. President, you call climate change a code red for humanity. The World Health Organization said it will cause an additional 250,000 deaths a year starting in 2030. Are you prepared to declare a national emergency with respect to climate change?
We've already done that. We've conserved more land. We've we've rejoined the Paris Climate Accord. We've passed the $368 billion climate control facility. We're moving. It is the existential threat to humanity.
I was thinking the same thing. This has to be intentional. Now, for the layman, for the person who doesn't understand how these things might work, are we talking about like a laser pointing from a satellite coming down, or is this coming out of the earth and arcing, or how does this work?
This is coming from actual drone militarized extraterrestrial units, but negative drone units. They're about biopsis positive drone units that maintain through the force and distribute through us, the Guardians and others, and actuation. But they're the negative ones that they deal with. Y'all be thinking that you're not even in a war, but you have to go and maintain yourself differently and understand their perception better. Bioelemental engineered products in an aeronautical stream of defense. Something that is being aeronautically and then defensively against each other. These drones are the negative types. They would have been set into perimeter with our HERPS industry itself. They correlated with communication satellites on their own, as well as these certain pod units that maintain these laser ionic distribution scenes. But do not mistake them to the force. The force is a bit different. Our units maintain better iopsis effects, would never go through something like that. You wouldn't know the difference automatically. That is why when they had said that certain UFOs were actually shot down, and some people mistake them, oh no, they shot a good one down. Some of them, when they do shoot them down, are considered the bad ones. Others that have been shot down, you would understand they'd have been on the good side. They dealt with a one-on-one impasse. A lot of these drones, they're not even maintained on a distribution scene where the holograms are inside as it is. They're self-programmed. Doesn't matter whether it's from the negative side or the positive side. Self-programmed. One thing that others don't know about the force and the negative beings against it.
You know, I've often been in meetings with other people and they use the expression, let's float this or let's float this by. Think about what happened not long ago. We had a balloon from China go across like the Hawaii area and come back up the coast, dip into Canada and come up. Yes. Now, what if they floated the idea by now the drone comes and takes those same patterns because they know they can get away with it for thousands of miles with nobody saying or doing anything? What if is it literally something that these drones do they self-destruct? Are they reusable and they're shooting something with acetylene? Because I know that burns a lot higher.
Well, there are certain types of drones. Like I said, there are drones that work with the Space Force, the good side. Then they have self-analytic drones that are different on the other end, the Dracon side. But the Dracon side more or less gets it from the Orient Greys, who have settled that inbreeding point in the first place, especially through certain COVID structures. Like I said, the Alpha Centauras, if people notice a lot of these negative actuators coming in. So these certain negative Democrats or negative beings or negative fusels amongst mankind that don't have a good leeway point. Their thought process, including Biden's, are not good. For their reasoning of a fact, they have a different type of line of defense. So people can pinpoint between those that work at the Air Force. The Air Force correlates with the Space Force and the higher grading points of the ETs and the good side. HARP system works against us. They work at the Biden's administration and a dedicated side of the Orient Greys, Matrix Greys, and as well as the Alpha Centauri Draconian Reptid fusels. But those two programs and understanding each other is clashing against and behind the lines the humans don't understand yet.
You know, the thing that gets me is the toll, and the toll numbers keep getting higher because they're actually finding or hoping to find human remains through teeth or jewelry or a small sample of DNA that didn't get burned somehow. But they say with the rapid effect of this fire, I looked up because I don't know fire that well, but the average structure fire can go to about 1100 degrees or so, maybe hotter. The average forest fire can go to 1472 degrees. When we cremate somebody, it has to be between 1400 and 1800 degrees, which makes me believe I know they say they had high winds and the emergency alarm system is usually for a tsunami. They didn't activate that, curiously. And I can't understand. And I'm finding it hard to conceptualize the speed at which this fire must have swept, which adds to the fuel to the fire, pardon the pun, about what we're talking about here, that it seems intentional and it seems a bad situation for those people in Hawaii.
Yeah, there were self-analyzed drones, but these drones don't correlate and move all over. They're different type, like I said. They stay in one place and they communicate straight into their negative satellite perimeters through HARP. And by a self-analytic grid, at least 50 to 100 miles above the hemisphere itself. That just enough so it's covered through the clouds. There is an inlet engram system between points of effect where humans can't see, and they can camouflage. Set that in tune, and within seconds to minutes, they can use a higher laser effect and militarize strategic points and maneuvers through these areas. It's scanned and analyzed through a type of extraterrestrial, like was stated, technology. The in-tune processing skills through these Draconians and or negative reptilians, the races that are circulated, especially and or around an area and or areas in China and other designation codes. Certain militaries had created substructures, self-analyzed it, and now are testing it on certain sites. This was a test too. This was a test to be set up against certain areas because they felt like that self-analyzing grid was in their way. There are better ways to distribute things instead of negatively taking actions against the perimeter itself.
You know, I can't help but think and wonder about, other beings from other places, and maybe this is like we're talking about here, some sort of weapon that we just hadn't even thought of or heard of or thought that could be possible. We think it's futuristic. We think it's from another world or what have you. I can't help but thinking about some of the paranormal encounters people have with different beings. And when I break it down for you and show you that when we're exploring as humans, we send a drone type thing. We send a robot or something like the Mars rover and stuff, some sort of intelligent structure, which we can control and communicate back and forth. Then the next step is putting man behind that, sending a man. We don't send 10,000 men. We send a couple of men to check this out. Maybe these paranormal encounters that we have are those people from other planets or other systems or other time dimensions. Is that why we see things like this Grinning Man and other just far out things? Could they possibly be those scouts from another planet or another place?
Well, Grinning Man is more or less a negative biopsis entity and or entity that is an in-between, more or less like an imp. The statistic is like a super sub-creature of an actuator effect of an extra dimensional being. Running along New Jersey is what they have correlated it with, and as well as connectivity to what had been documented to UFO standards and UFO sightings, as well as correlations with the Mothman himself. And the Mothman don't stay in one site like the Grinning Man would in New Jersey. The Mothman has been seen everywhere, especially around the West Coast perimeters, sometimes northeastern, as well as coordinating into that perimeter in New Jersey. They can fly around as an ultra-dimensional. Now, unfortunately, with the Grinning Man, he cannot, but he can use an alter frequency outlet of a UFO indexer itself to utilize around. He is a time skipper, so that indexer effect would move him to other actuated lines. But its main habitual or main habitat underlies with the actual New Jersey.
You know, that brings me to my childhood, because I spent my childhood in New Jersey, and I remember not behaving or being told in a scary situation that the boogeyman would come get me. Watch out, the boogeyman would come get you. And I'm just wondering if a being like this has been around many years. It's just been called different names in different areas, kind of like we've come to know with Bigfoot, the Yeti, and so forth, depending on the area. Is that a thing similar here, do you think? Do you think this Grinning Man is in another area as well?
It does. It could, yes, but its main actuator is air. It does have another name, and it's called the Indrid Cold, an entity itself. It runs along the properties of a wide grin, kind of like correlated actuated forms that dealt with Alice in Wonderland and other movies like Joker. I mean, they do inlet things on a paranormal redux form or higher redux form with certain movies that come into reality itself. That poses through a certain reality status because it has no ears, no nose, beady eyes, red eyes. The eyes are actually a bit red and they glow. And it's a troublemaker. It likes to cause problems with things. I mean, it's not considered evil in pretense, like certain other beings that they think would be. Like jinns, for instance. They're more or less troublemakers. They want to cause issues in a fun way, in their own way. Or maybe they could actuate a negative waistband if they felt like it. But for this being, I would just be wary about, because it does pose a threat only because of its power indexers and the way it reforms things.
It's amazing you had brought that up about Alice in Wonderland and so forth, because I immediately thought of the Cheshire Cat. You spoke of Joker. I had immediately thought the Grinning Man with the Joker, and I guess you could go to Stephen King's It with a clown, because you got to understand different. You go back, you watch Ancient Aliens or something where they're showing these ancient drawings and they're showing people combined with birds and fire coming out, because they didn't have a reference point. They didn't know that there was a such thing as an airplane even. It's a little bit easier for us to conceive these ideas because we don't have to go from dust to flying machine. We go to flying machine, then we go to these interdimensional things that we're seeing with UFOs and UAPs and so forth. I just can't understand how we can go on for so long in our civilization with having these encounters and everybody just not admitting it. It's like not everybody's still on board. Not everybody's open-minded enough. If I'm hearing about these things and I'm not open-minded enough, Is there anything you can say to me to make me more open-minded that these things are real?
Well, because people have had numerous sightings over the aspects of it. The correlations that go upon that and able to make a doctrine effect, take a picture, take a video, be there on time, know that timeline, and perceive it to its doctrine effect. You're able to stabilize between unreality and reality. Obviously, that goes through reality with these type of paranormal beings. No matter how you look at it, no matter how much others want to say it's just, it's not there, it's unreal. You got to look your facts from your fiction, rights from your wrong. You got to know and understand, because there's going to be a lot of documentations and proof out there besides what your own eyes perceive that will bring that into a reality itself. These things are real. What?
No, I was just thinking that, you had sent something in the notes about this SCP Foundation and thinking of these things that may or may not be real. I've seen it reported that this SCP Foundation is a fictional thing. And then I started thinking about it. And then I was like, wow, what better way to blend in? If I had a top secret project that I knew people were going to find out about somehow, why not just put it out there and say, oh, look at this fictional thing. Meanwhile, it's a real thing internally. Is that a possibility, you think?
Well, yes, absolutely. I mean, Area 51 was a part of the SCP Foundation. And I say was because of the movement streams that were diagnosed and the acclamations that it was actually one site out of several others itself. And it deal with the aliens paranormal indexer points effects, as well as diagnosing on higher terrestrial themes and aligning through what can be correlated into a better age. So certain acclamations with Donald John Trump in the past had made affiliations with Area 51 and diagnosing the Space Force itself. Why he did that, it had to do with the extraterrestrials part. Yes, I mean, he is an SCP as well as my own and others. SCPs are actual paranormal indexers that were and have numerical numbers set by Foundation members as to secure, contain, and protect the streams of events here. And if you don't believe me, you look up the site. I know it's a wiki site, and they'll say, some of this shit's not real. But look up SCP Foundation itself. Look up Donald Trump in it. He is in the SCP. Hold on. 1 second. Every time. Oh, I'm going to repeat this. That's okay. He is in the SCP Foundation site itself. His picture, the analytical effect. Why would they goof around about that and just add him to things? Maybe pay attention to that humanoids, biopsis figures, buildings, this, that, creatures, all of it funded through the Foundation. Anything that does not concede a normal effect. Even Biden himself, I wouldn't be surprised, is somewhere in there. If he isn't, he should be.
I looked at the sites that I've seen online that I just said were considered to be fictional. And I think we're right on it. There's that blend of, oh, that's just, yeah, it's like, remember when Hillary kept saying about, oh, yeah, the only Russian collusion was on Donald Trump's part. Well, many years later, the rest of the world caught up and found out that none of that was really true. Now you look at sites and information like this, I think the powers that be know they can't hide these things. They're not going to be able to hide it. So they might as well jump in with it. And instead of fighting against the wind, use the wind to your advantage. And I think that's what it is. One of the things I looked up here, there's an evil villain, they say, called the Plague Doctor. I wonder if we've had a Plague Doctor recently.
Yeah, exactly. But the similar events can be causeway through there are problems with certain replications. They have an issue. They need to be healed. Bam, you got to kill the being and refurbish it. It's how that Plague Doctor would analyze things his satellites, in fact, are only seeing that there are wrongs amongst humans' calling codes. So they have put him on a protection screen. He more or less but a diagnosis as a him because he does have a male voice. This being is protected. This being is behind in a certain bars itinerary code. This being does not self-analyze amongst mankind because it does not reproduce good amongst them. It doesn't go on a good calling code. On the understanding, there are two different levels. Now, I'm not saying it's a negative being. It's more misunderstood, and its diagnosis strange just needs to be set in a more understandable wavelength. Well, what goes with Mr. Biden himself and the circuit codes and analyze with these draconians, their reciprocal ways is, okay, we need a fix. We need to get rid of the white and the black race and correlate with central diagnosis streams. But even then, it's going to cause a problem, and they'll self-defamate upon impasse. Because there would come a timeline where their reincursion will not go on good waves.
And again, I hate to be, I hope I'm not making people go in a rabbit hole here. First off, SCP, that's secure, contain, and protect. Okay. And I'm looking at some of this stuff, and I hate to keep going back to this plague doctor, but I'm reading some of the things about the plague doctor, super intelligence, surgical skills, immortality. The goal of the plague doctor is to rid the world of the pestilence. We've heard about the WEF and so forth wanting to reduce the world's population because they don't want us using up all their resources. They want those resources. They want to be able to fly around the world in big jets, but they want you to be an electric car that limits your distance, and that's going to take off. We can't have the populace traveling all over the place. That's ridiculous. They're using up our resources. And it just, some of the crimes that the plague doctor is accused of, mass murder, scamming, mutilation, stalking, unethical experimentation. I don't know, folks. Again, I say if you want to hide in plain sight. If you're in the military, you wear camouflage to blend in with everything around you. You don't show up to fight in a bright colored clown suit. This is what they're doing, folks. They're blending in. They're talking about the reality, yet it's fiction, folks. It's fiction. This is amazing to me. I'm glad you opened this up to me. Are there any other beings or any other things about the SCP that I should know?
Well, going back to the doctor himself, he is a bit different in these analytical effects of this certain Centauri Draconians because he is a more higher to intelligence, and humans could learn from the diagnosis streams that this being has. So it's best just to keep it locked up and keep it comfortable, but not kill it. But with these Alpha Centauras, it's different. They don't have a wavelength that could help anything. So they need a self-analytic grid that could reternalize them all together to something else. There is two differences, and I'm not saying I would say leave that SCP alone and let the Foundation members take care of it and learn from it. Other than that, do not get too in-depth into that scene. Now, there are others. There are a few others. I mean, there could be numerous others. Maybe down the lines on other episodes, I can get into them too. Now, another one is the living clay doll. The living clay doll is similar, kept in captivity to a certain Foundation site. Now, if people look away and not stare at this being as the clay figure itself, and it always looks to the wall, stays in a quarter. They do have pictures, and they do fundamentally have sightings of this creature, but they're very rare. And there's a main actuator point that is in captivity. So far, they have not fundamentally found any others than that one at this time. But that one can be considered to pose as a threat, because it automatically attacks anything on sight if it stops, or if it blinks, I believe, or stops staring. If you stop staring, you blink, move away from it. If one set soul that's in the room with it stops, it will turn around and will attack.
It's crazy to me because go ahead. I'm sorry.
These beings are fundamentally, I mean, the Foundation, the members want to learn from them, but they could pose a very real threat to regular humans on their own and not of the streets.
Again, kind of like we spoke of before, like with the Grinning Man and Sasquatch and Mothman and whatever it is. I'm looking up more information here about this living clay creature, and you can go back in Jewish folklore, way back. They had a creature named Golem, and it's entirely from inanimate matter, usually clay or mud. So again, this is something that goes back a long time. It's always been around. I guess it's just changed, terminology or whatever. But again, here it is, SCP, right on their site, showing you what everything is. But don't worry, that's fictional. Just because they were talking about this 2,000 years ago, before the written word, I'm just amazed by this. I'm so glad we're talking about this. If I see one of these beings, do I freeze? Do I play dead? Do I run? Are they going to chase me?
Well, usually people who run into the negative fundamentals, they would want to call. Well, it's very rare for one thing. And when it does happen, you want to get a hold of some type of fundamental foundation or a certain type of governmental that could take care of them, or run away and then contact. Because it's very rare for these types of beings to be out and about. Usually certain governments or foundation members have them on cue to keeping and protecting mankind from getting harmed. There is a pose on a problem with this, because these Alpha Centauras and what they're doing when they're ripping out and fundamentally decimating certain areas on this realm and putting others feeding ways upon it, they're taking away the paranormal indexers of the beings that already lived upon that were protected by a certain foundation. That's even being posed as a threat now because of what they want to do. We need to hit back hard on certain perimeters that they are diagnosing and set in a more protective wavelength. We do not want more cause and harm of effect for mankind.
Wow, that's deep stuff there. Wow, we're almost to the end of the show. We do have a couple more things I want to get in here, though. Is there anything else to report from the Federation and the Space Force?
I do want to talk about one more thing for the SCPs.
Okay, sure.
And that is the Moscow Sabalin sea monster. It is real, and they have pictures of that diagnosed with the Aerostream, and I believe a certain whale creature, a beluga, that they had stated. They looked very similar. The fossils do not simulate to what certain whales would have, though. These creatures are sea monsters, and they can actually live on ground as well, for wetter areas where they hide in amongst shrubbery and plants. You wouldn't find them, though, in bigger areas. Like I said, the more they put into these negative beings and rip up the earth and put cities and other stuff in, the more they're going to expose this platform and fundamentally cause a problem for mankind when it can be correlated around. But these creatures themselves, they have huge mouths. They open up. There has been a video of it too. And they have Foundation members and other people who have stepped in accidentally and got snatched up and it swallowed whole.
Wow.
They are carnivorous creatures, and they don't really move around, go after, more or less they're like an entrapment code. So you just want to stay out of their line of sight, in their area, their habitat where they're at.
Wow. And again, folks, for more, I'll put a link up on the socials here for some of this information that I found. And I think it's fascinating. Again, this whole SCP thing, I think it's the government hiding secrets in plain sight, if you ask me. Anything else from the Space Force or the Federation?
Yes, it goes with the heat indexers of what's being caused on a war retent. And that has to deal with the water. The water's being more warmer than normal, the oceans. Think about how certain areas around the lands itself, especially close to the water, they're starting to drill down and mess with the underground structures. And then it goes right into the water systems itself. or where they're or correlating an arrow stream closer to the defense, or on the oceans or onto the land's perimeters, there can be a way to manually make the waters more warmer than normal and cause a refined negative effect. They are starting to do this in certain areas now, and there are actually reefs and other plants and wildlife dying out because of this.
Crazy. Yeah, you've seen the videos, folks, in the past several months of whales, groups of ocean life just washing up on shore, and it's a shame that's going on. But that sounds like another whole show there. Let's go right to our ET of the week.
Okay. And after that, I do want to say one more thing that deals with Zuckerberg and Elon Musk.
Awesome.
ET of the week. The Andara Ekeit Grace. The inter-race circulated codes that bi-mix between humanoid gray statistics, closer to the reticuli but more to Andara. They are constructed, and their bianopsis effect can have an intergender sequencing code between two correlation spheres. As a saving grace, they have been inbreeded into maintaining something that may be on a future iopsis effect. Circulation codes went through underground as well as maintainment spheres what their cousins, the Zetans, had inticulated about between themselves and certain humans. To saving grace into the formality integrating as well as DNA encodings to moving things forward. That is why they look similar to a human, but they're shorter and they're more gray on a higher standard note between them and the Zetas themselves. They're good.
Wow. You know, it's funny because you think of that all the time. Well, I do anyway. I could be out in public and there could be a bunch of people, and I'll scan 20 people and I'll go, "Yep, that guy's from another planet." I mean, is it that? Are they that closely resemble us at times? I mean,
well, hold on. They were correlation spheres diagnosed that a lot of the negative alpha Centauri draconian reptiles had taken into effect through military systems underground. Not just human trafficking, child trafficking, but also symbolizing trafficking of these species. They were saving graces amongst mankind to maybe bringing and distributing something for the near future. So humans are not the only things that are priority upon this realm. There were other gray species and other types of terrestrial species, including reptilians, that lived here too. So there have been acclamations to saving the graces and the formality codes and the DNA substructures between both, or between self-analytic codes, if there are a good higher wavelength itself.
I see. All right, let's get into it. We talk about it almost every week now. Musk and Zuckerberg. Give me your take here.
Well, this is a concern for Facebook now. There is a certain Russian group, I'm not saying Russia itself because we know that dealings with they're on a good agenda, but there are certain groups correlating through the annual group between them and Zuckerberg and on Facebook itself that are taking those of celebrities and they're using their names and saying that they're old. Like Elon, I'm not married now. I'll give you a free car, but you got to pay this. I'll give you a card, but you got to do this. I have been gotten this myself, and I have been warned by other people that this is a said warning outwards. This reality check one-on-one cage match between Zuckerberg and Elon with this bullshit with the other crap. If I have to take on the other side, I'll take the other side with this. I mean, this is ridiculous. We do not take automated bots and start using humanity with those automated bots, saying that you're a certain public figure. For shame on you. If I were you, Zuckerberg, I would rightfully let Elon take over Facebook. Because I'm shaking my head. You should feel ashamed of yourself and an allowance to other beings to doing this.
Wow. Heavy. You know, I've often said if they changed one letter in the word Facebook, it would be what it really is, and that's fake. Fake book. Change that C to a K. fake book. Hey, thank you for watching, everybody. Thank you for listening today. We had a fun-filled show today. Go back and listen to it again. I have to do that every week because I catch something new every time. Blue, thank you. Thank you very much. It was a wonderful show. 31. Congratulations. 31 episodes. That's awesome. All right, folks. Thank you. We'll talk to you next time.